the right of our manifest destiny to overspread and to possess the whole of the continent which Providence has given us. John O'Sullivan, 1845. John Gast's painting, American Progress, seen here, symbolizes everything that manifest destiny symbolized. It was bringing American culture moving westward, as manifest destiny was a phrase used by leaders and politicians coined by O'Sullivan that we heard in the 1840s to explain why continental expansion of the United States was inevitable. But at the heart of manifest destiny was the pervasive belief in American cultural and racial superiority. There was a growing myth in the 1840s that the West was a land of romance and adventure, destined to be conquered by the United States. Now, there are many reasons for the growth of this myth, but the Second Great Awakening was only one of many things. For as people thought that there's this revival in religion and worshiping of God, that God had destined the United States to take this land. He wanted us to expand westward. Obviously, there was also economic motives. Southern planters could move further west, taking their slaves with them. There was fur trade. Homesteaders wanted new farmland. And then also the gold strike and the ensuing 49ers gold rush. So there are many things that led to this feeling of manifest destiny. But what are some other things that you can think about in the early to mid 1800s that existed and were going on in America during that time? Part of it is expansion in the United States, obviously, with the idea of manifest destiny. But we're also settling our borders up in the northeastern part of the U.S. as well, as the border of Maine and Canada was established and made permanent by the Webster-Ashburton Treaty Line. Other trends of antebellum America was things that we've studied. Think about the religious movements, all the different social reforms, lots of social reforms that we've been looking at. We see the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, especially in the northern states. We also witnessed the reemergence of the two-party system and the increase in federal power established by the Marshall Court. So you think about all these different ideas. It kind of led this increase of American nationalism and pride in our nation. And we wanted to take those ideas and move them westward during Manifest Destiny. One of the first ways in which we expand as a nation during Manifest Destiny is to annex Texas into our union. But before we can annex them, we have to look at how they got their independence, because they were basically an independent republic for about 10 years. Now, in 1820, a gentleman by the name of Moses Austin had asked the Spanish authorities, as Spain controlled Mexico at this time, for some land tracts in which he would bring American settlers down and work to make improvements on that land and live on that land. However, he dies before he's able to fulfill his dream and his goals. And so his son, Stephen Austin, led some settlers from the United States to Mexico in the Texas region. And by 1830, there was over 16,000 Americans in Texas. Almost 4 times as many Americans as there were Mexicans. And eventually, the Texans will go to war for their independence and be led by Sam Houston. Now, when Stephen Austin originally settled in Texas, the Mexican government, which by this time had actually declared their independence from Spain, said that the Americans could come as long as they did 2 things. 1, follow Mexican laws, basically become Mexican citizens. And 2, follow their religion, Roman Catholicism. Now, as the settlers came, they were allowed to bring with them slaves. However, as time went on and the American population continued to grow, the Mexican government grew suspicious of the increase in American presence, and they grew fearful that eventually they might try to declare their independence. And so, therefore, they take some measures to try to limit and halt the influx of Americans, including the outlawing of slavery. Now, eventually what happens, obviously, is that Texas does declare their independence in March of 1836. And so you can see, really, this war for Texas independence begins because the Texans didn't want to follow Mexican rules. Now, as it turns out, what we'll look at here is just a couple of the battles. If you take a look at the map, kind of just there in San Antonio is the Battle of the Alamo in March of 1836. And straight to the east almost is the Battle of San Jacinto in April of 1836. Now, I mention these two battles because of their significance. For it was after the defeat of the Alamo that the battle cry, "Remember the Alamo," kind of spurred on the other Texans to continue this fight for independence. As the roughly 180 or so men fought from within the Alamo, men like William Travis and Davy Crockett, Santa Anna led his Mexican forces in a siege that lasted several days. And when it was all said and done, every defender was killed. Not only that, but their bodies were taken outside and set on fire to try to send a message to the other Texans to put down their arms. And after several other defeats, including a slaughter at Goliad, the Texans were able to turn the table on the Mexicans when Sam Houston met up with Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto. And once this battle had been fought, the Texans came out victorious and able to solidify their independence. And eventually, Sam Houston, who was the war leader and hero, is elected president of the Lone Star Republic of Texas. And it's for a period of about 10 years that Texas is independent before it's annexed and becomes a state within the United States. But the question of annexation or not kind of raised some trouble for the Americans. Some thought we should annex them, others didn't think we should, including the Northern Whigs and anti-slavery population of the U.S. But we'll take a further look at Manifest Destiny in our next episode.